All right. I said we'd have kind of a predictions segment to end the show. Let's get to it. Let's put some names to predictions. Let's hold our feet to the fire a little bit. Let's put our reputations on the line as college football experts. So we're going to go by and we're going to go through. We're going to do this next week. I believe we're going to do this next week for defense as well, right?
Yep.
That's the plan. Okay, so we're going to start with offense this week. We're going to name players. We're going to predict, each of us, who we think is going to have the most passing, rushing, and receiving yards at the end of this season. Let's start with passing yards, all right? Now, this isn't a draft. This isn't a, whatever. We all wanted to pick different ones to have a discussion, so, that's kind of the only caveat to this. I went with Clayton Tune of Houston.
Yeah.
The reason why is you lose Alton McCaskill for the year. I do like Tajon Henry at running back, but I do think that they're in a position to where now they know they have a quarterback who they can trust, and they have a receiver who they know they need to get the ball to at all costs. So my pick to have finished with the most passing yards in the state in 2022 is Houston's Clayton Tune.
I like the pick. I feel like 6-year quarterbacks under Dana Holgorsen set the world on fire. Like every time he's had, like a 23-year-old running his quarterback room, they've put up huge numbers. And not only is Nathaniel Dell back, but they've added some wide receivers around him through the transfer portal. And even in recruiting with Matthew Golden, that should make that better right away. Like the second leading receiver for Houston last year, if you take away the tight end, had 17 catches, right? Like there's going to be more options for Clayton Tune. I think he has a huge year. I'll go second. I took Tanner Mordecai. He had 3,600 passing yards last year, which I believe was most in the state. It was 12th in the nation, third all-time at SMU. I believe he's going to throw for even more yards. I know his wide receiver core doesn't have Danny Gray and a couple other guys there, but they added Jake Bailey and a few other dudes through transfers. Rashee Rice is going to be on the outside. He's going to be a weapon. Rhett Lashley's going to run so many plays.
Right.
Like they're going to go so quick, so fast, tempo. I believe that he's going to approach the 4,000-yard mark. So for that reason, I took Tanner Mordecai.
I'll go last. I picked whoever's going to start at Texas Tech between Tyler Shuck, Donovan Smith, or Baron Morton. As of right now, we don't know who's going to start. I think between us, we're going to go with Tyler Shuck, but McGuire has not put out anything yet. I went with him mainly because they've got a new offensive coordinator in Zach Kittley. If you guys remember, he was the offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach at Western Kentucky last year. He got to coach the incredible Bailey Zappi, who's also the winner of our Earl Campbell Award. Dude put up almost 6,000 passing yards last season. So I think anybody under Zach Kittley, whoever's going to start at that Texas Tech position, is going to put up the most passing yards.
Yeah, that's a good pick because I think even if he doesn't approach, obviously he won't approach those numbers, but you're still probably
going to put up a lot of numbers.
I was about to say, you can still approach 4,000 and
right.
the state.
That would be a 33% drop in production to still throw 4,000 yards.
I'm going to remember this, and I'm going to pull out that stat next season.
Go
and we're
for
just
it.
to be funny.
I think that's a great pick. I think the wide receiver room is a little underrated. I think that they're pretty good there, and even though, like Ish said, they're not going to throw the ball as much as he did at Western Kentucky, they're going to throw the ball a lot.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
there's going to be some numbers put up at Texas Tech. The only thing that concerns me there is the injury last year.
Yes.
Right? So do we see multiple quarterbacks for Texas Tech, which would eliminate some numbers? And also, that schedule is so hard. They have maybe the hardest schedule in the state.
Yeah. I think the thing that I'm hesitant on with Tanner Mordecai is SMU ran the ball a lot more with Red Lashley at offensive coordinator. And I'm wondering, now that they've added a lot more depth, right? You added Kamar Wheaton, you added Ulysses Bentley. Trey Siggers, I forgot about him too. What does that play calling look like now, right? Is there more balance, or or does Rhett Lashley know that he has a great quarterback and he lets him loose, or is it more like we can take some off his plate actually?
Right.
We can probably, I don't know. That was my only hesitation.
My argument back to that would be Rhett Lashley's offense is more vertical based, so he may throw fewer times but have about the same amount of yards because it's not going to be as short intermediate as Sonny Dykes' offense.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, let's move on to running backs. This one had to get a little creative because I definitely was last to pick in this one. So, but I don't want to go with. I don't know. I had to think about this a little bit more, but I think I am perfectly fine with my pick. I went with TCU's Kendra Miller. Now, you know what? I'm gonna let you go because there's obvious names that are before. So I'm gonna let you guys go, and then I will justify my pick.
Yeah, because I think the other guy's got to be off the board for that to make more sense. I had the first pick because I came up with the game. And
you stole all of our picks. You're like, I know.
So I took a guy in Austin that drives a Ferrari by the name of Bajan Robinson. It rhymes with Dijon. He is incredible. He's the best running back in the state in a long time. He's awesome. If he's healthy, he'll run for 1,500 yards. I'd imagine even with Quinn Ewers at quarterback and an improved wide receiver core, we get a lot of Bajan Robinson. Like, he's going to run the ball a lot. Because if you're Steve Sarkisian, this is your last year to have him. Right? He's going to be in the NFL next year, whether he plays one snap or all the snaps, right? So you might as well put him out there, let him play. When he was the OC at Alabama, it's not like they didn't run the ball, a whole heck of a lot. So Bajan Robinson's going to get plenty of touches. He's the best player on that team, and if they want to get to 8, 9, 10 wins, he's going to have to be a superstar. So give me Bajan Robinson.
I went with Texas A&M running back Tavon Austin. He's picked in our preseason All-State first team, and he led the SEC in yards per attempt with, I think, 7.5 yards, which is a crazy number.
7 yards an attempt is
insane. So that stat, I think, pretty much speaks for itself, and also he's going to be behind a pretty good offensive line that can block for him. And
pretty good offensive line. Isaiah Spiller's gone.
Yes.
So H.A.'s the dude now.
Yeah, he fell behind Spiller all the time.
Right.
So he was.
So he's going to get plenty of touches this year. It'll be interesting to see what his output becomes with more touches.
Yes.
Yeah.
Obviously you would expect that 7 to go down, but does it plummet, right? Does he stay at a reasonable 5?
If he stays like 5 to 6, then okay, but if he gets down to 3.8, 4.2, or if he gets injured, if it's too much for him, because he's not the biggest guy in the world.
Sure.
But with the ball in his hands, he may be the most electric running back in the state, right? Like, he can do some things Bajan can't in terms of just straight line speed. Like, he's a legit college track and field sprinter, one of the top 10 60-meter sprinter guys in indoor in the nation. So an electric superstar at A&M.
All right, so now my pick makes more sense. Kendra Miller from TCU. The reason why I went with him is because, one, you take a big old Zach Evans out of the backfield, right? He still averaged, obviously because of the game plan for a lot of teams against TCU, you have Quentin Johnson they have to account for as well. You're going to forget about a guy named Kendra Miller, as teams did last year. Averaged 7.5 yards a carry. Only had about 25 less yards than Zach Evans. Again, Zach Evans had about 10 more carries, but he was almost as productive. Obviously, the top end is what you have Zach Evans for and what made him, other than Bajan Robinson, the best running back in the state last year. But you have a very reliable upperclassman running back now with a coach that knows if he has a playmaker, he's going to get on the ball at all costs, right? Sonny Dykes knows how to get that working. I think, obviously, he's probably not the most athletic or athletically gifted player on that offense, right? I think that would go outside to Quentin Johnston. But if you are uncertain about maybe Max Duggan's consistency, you're going to try to give the ball to the guy that you know can get the ball in very low-risk situations, and that's going to be the bell cow of your offense. That's going to be the guy. I would not be shocked to see him cross the 1,000-yard mark because I don't know if the depth is there overall. I think, obviously, you'll play 2-3 running backs, as anybody does in now. Bajan Robinson has Roshan Johnson spelling carries for him. But I would not be shocked to see him cross that 1,000-yard mark this year because he's the guy. He's the guy that people know about. He's the guy that if you're Sonny Dykes, you've seen him in camp, be like, yeah, we can make that work. We can make sure that no matter what, Max Duggan's having an off day, Max Duggan's injured.
Or Chandler Morris.
Or Chandler Morris, I'm not saying that. TCU fans, don't get mad at me. But regardless, whoever's at quarterback, right, injury, whatever, inconsistency, whatever, you're going to have somebody in the backfield that's been there for multiple years, worked under multiple offensive coordinators. You know what you got. And so that's why I took Kendra Miller. Other names that I do want to watch out for. I mentioned Tajon Henry, because I think he was very productive last year for Houston, and now you have Nolan McCaskill. I'm curious. Does what you mentioned, does Holgorsen let it rip with Clayton Tune, or does he want to keep that balance and trust somebody like a Tajon Henry to maybe take some of those, take the pressure off him? Maybe. I don't know. Another one, Dion Hankins.
Yep.
From UTEP. He was hurt last year. He was supposed to be their guy heading into last year. As a true freshman, he was very solid, very reliable. I'm curious to see what he looks like healthy. If he's healthy, I'm not saying he'll burst in onto the scene with 1,200 yards rushing, but there's a reason why He was supposed to be ahead of Ronald Awatt last year. Ronald Awatt was a very good running back for them last year. He's probably going to start over Awatt healthy. There's a reason for that. I think I'm very intrigued what he has.
I think the tandem aspect of those two
Yeah.
probably keeps them at like 700-800 yards each.
Also,
or same with Tech with Taj Brooks,
yes, and
Sir
Roger
Roger Thompson. The same thing. I think Alton McCaskill would have been the number 3 guy had he been healthy. My sneaky pick here is Kamar Wheaton.
Ooh.
At SMU.
Yeah.
I thought you were
Because
Traylon Smith.
That's a
we've
good
talked.
one.
Well, Traylon Smith, that's actually a good one as well. I did not have my UTSA colored glasses on there, but that is a good one as well behind that offensive line. But Kamar Wheaton is as physically talented as maybe anybody but Bajan Robinson, right?
Sure.
I mean, he's a former 5-star guy. He went to Alabama. It's not like Nick Saban recruits running backs that don't know how to play running back, right? So, you mentioned how much Rhett Lashley does like to run the football. As much as he kind of has the reputation of an up-tempo, pass it around former quarterback guy, he's going to run the football. So if Kamar Wheaton's what we all think he is and kind of what people at camp have been saying he already is, he's a guy that over the last 8-9 games of the season, once he gets his feet ready and kind of his stamina back, he's a dude that could really chop up American Athletic Conference defenses.
I think that's pretty safe. All right, let's get to receiving yards. And Craven, let's go.
Yeah, Nathaniel Dell, slot receiver, Houston. He had 1,000 more yards than any other player on Houston's team. Some of the stuff doesn't even seem right? He caught 1,329 yards last year. I think that number goes down because defenses are going to double team him even if he's in the slot, and he has a better supporting cast around him to spread the ball around.
Yep.
Still, he's going to put up 1,000+ yards at wide receiver, and it's hard to count on somebody doing that if he stays healthy. Dana Holgorsen said Tavon Austin is the only player that he's ever had, at slot receiver that's better or as good as Nathaniel Dell.
And
That's high praise.
I was about to say that is
right,
insane
that's
praise.
that's high praise. And so he's going to be, with a 6-year quarterback, with starting experience back there, Nathaniel Dell is going to be an All-American.
I picked probably one of the top 5 receivers in college football in Xavier Worthy. He was a freshman last year and almost put up 1,000 yards. I think it was 951 to be exact. So no telling what he's going to do for his sophomore year. And I think we talked about it a little bit earlier with all the injuries in the wide receiver room. But I think, too, that they'll get him the ball a lot more as well, just because he's not going to have that kind of backup. Yeah. So that's why I think that he'll put up probably more numbers than he did last year. But also, like you mentioned earlier, he's going to get double teamed a lot. So that could, take a couple of those yards away.
Sure. And he's going to have Quinn Ewers throwing on the ball and not Casey Thompson and Hudson Card.
I was
probably.
going to say
that's a pretty big plus.
Yeah, right, for sure.
That's going to be pretty big. All right, I did put on my G5 glasses for this one because there were some names that I thought about, but it's Zakari Franklin for me, man. I think UTSA's wide receiver room is one of the most underrated in the country. I think obviously you have guys like Josh Cephas and DeCorian Clark that will take passes away from him, but I think the fact that those guys' physicality doesn't allow teams to focus on Zakari Franklin. You can't double Zakari Franklin because he's the smallest of that bunch. because that leaves 6'3" Josh Cephas one-on-one. That leaves 6'2" DeCorian Clark, 200-pound DeCorian Clark one-on-one. Zakari Franklin he's not going to get doubled. And so I think he's going to have absolutely – the numbers that I think will go down for Zakari Franklin are his touchdowns. I think his touchdowns will go down a little bit because they'll be targeting, I think, those other guys in the red zone a little bit more. But I think every other down, he's going to still be the guy, and I don't think defenses and secondary is going to be able to key in on him because they're going to be like, yeah, we'll take our chance with the 6'1", 180 guy, right? We'll take our chance one-on-one with him because we don't want to body the other. No. We don't want the other guys to box us out. So I'm going to go with Zakari Franklin. He already had over 1,000 yards last year, 81 receptions. You have another year, Frank Harris. I don't know if there's a quarterback wide receiver combo in the state that's better connected right now than those guys over the past couple years. I think it's Zakari Franklin. I would not be surprised if he finishes with the top receiving yards in the state.
Yeah, I think that's a great pick. Frank Harris, without Sincere there, they're going to throw the ball more. Will Stein's the play caller now, former quarterback at Louisville, who was the wide receiver coach before he got moved to this OC.
At, Lake Travis.
Yeah. And so they're going to throw the ball plenty this year. And the other reason you can't double Zakari Franklin, I've never seen anybody play 7 in the box against a Jeff Traylor football team, right? Because they're still going to run the ball without Sincere McCormick. Yep. They're going to figure that out. 4 offensive linemen returning. I don't think I've seen Zakari Franklin like covered and he still catches the ball. Like he's like a really good in traffic ball catcher. So it doesn't even matter if they double team him.
Sure.
You know, like he's just one of those dudes that I think Frank has so much confidence in him that it's like, you know, once a series you're going to throw it up to Zakari.
Yep.
So there
There
we
you
go.
go.
All right.
As a reminder too, we made graphics for these, so we're gonna throw
Yes.
those up on our Twitter page at DCTF CFB.
Just remember to vote for me.
And yeah, go vote.